The second video will introduce control flow of the durable task. So there is durable functions using several parts. The one is a durable function itself. This is extension, and that using a durable task framework, and also the Azure Functions host inside of the Azure Functions host durable functions using a WebJobs SDK. So this time, you can know the behavior of the durable task and how it works with the correlation. So in this case, I start with the behavior of the orchestration, and once the orchestration receives the start the orchestration, usually if it is Azure Functions, it might be having some activity already or some other system already create the activity. Then you can pass to the client of the the orchestration like this. Task Hub client is one. So once this is getting the activity, they have an ID of the correlation ID. So getting from it and Task Hub queue class the create a queue and inject inject the trace context in here as I explained in the first video. And also the usually the Task Hub client generate only one queue, but other the class might be create other queue at the same times sometimes, and it includes the trace context. And then all of the behavior is the organized by the task orchestration dispatcher class. This is the pouring the queue and controlling the flow. This guy, the having all functions and also the pouring the queue at the same time. So several queue is coming at the same time to the orchestrator. In this case, the big one is the Azure Storage Orchestration Service. This is the watched and holded by the dispatcher. And if you receive the valid queue to the orchestrator, what happened is first the log next task orchestration work item async. This method is executed, and inside of this, some class analyze the queue and define the state of the orchestration. For example, like this. This is done as a task message. This has a state like this. For example, hey, this orchestration is just started. Hey, this orchestration is completed, or this is terminated, or something like that stuff. The all of status is inside of the task message, so we can define the status of the orchestration service inside of this method. So first of all, before the executing actual orchestration functions, this method works, and this guy the getting the queue and analyze that, and we can check out the status of this. Now, according to the status, we create a trace context in here, and newly created, because that we need to correlate from the the activity that is coming to the Task Hub client, and Task Hub client make it create a trace context, inherit the activity, and send to this orchestration, and this orchestration also read a queue. So this guy can read the trace context of that is generated by the Task Hub queue client, Task Hub client. So this new trace context is correlated between the parent one. So once task orchestration work item created, this task orchestration dispatch other method. This is orchestrator. The orchestrator eventually is executed in this timing. So orchestration dispatcher can see the task orchestration work item that includes the trace context. So the dispatcher can pass the orchestrator to the trace context. I've done that inside of the dispatcher. So orchestrator can refer that the trace context object. Then if the orchestrator execution finished, then this method is called by the orchestration dispatcher. This is called complete task orchestration work item async. This means that some the procedure that after the finishing the orchestrator. So eventually, this method is the check it out the status and task hub queue and sending the next queue. For example, the if the orchestrator execute the activity function, then the new queue for the activity function is created with the trace context. It could be several, but if you execute, the uh, the several stuff, it could be several, but yeah, generally speaking, it is only one. So yeah, this stuff is happening inside of the orchestrator. Sometimes it's several. Yeah, and then for the watch out the activity, this is just a single. That there is a task activity dispatcher is there. This is organizing everything. So queue is coming. This is only one. Have a trace context. The activity dispatcher is the reside. Also, the have a method like this. Log next task activity work item async. This is executed before execute activity. So this guys also the analyze the queue and the getting the trace context from here as a parent, and so this guy create a new trace context with the activity class. So once this is created, then this newly created activity inside of the trace context is passing to the activity class. So that is why the activity class can refer the not only the trace context but also the activity class instance. So a customer can customize, send the custom telemetry from here, or the create dependency telemetry to call the other system. So then the once activity finished, the complete task activity work item async starts. Then this guy called eventually call the task hub queue, and yeah, so and the passing the trace context, and that trace context included the queue. Yeah, this is the basic behavior of the the orchestrator and the activity. So that's it. So let's jump into the code reading. So you can defer the this orchestrator. So now this is the one. So let's go to the as I explained. So lock next. This is the this method is called before the the orchestration start. So as you can see that you can find several things, and this session with reading the data and the message data. This is the one that is analyzed from the orchestra queues, and this orchestrator can get several one at the same time. And you can check it out inside of the the message data. You can see the message, task message. Uh, so you can find a task message. So task message, yeah, have a history event. This have a status. So you can decide if you track or not, or if you yeah, these according to these the parameter. This is eventually passed to the other runtime status or something. Yeah, but you can differ something like this. So for the correlation part, that you can differ this method. Correlation trace context trace client propagate. This is some kind of the feature flag. If you configure, that hey, I'd like to enable the distributed tracing, and if you configure something like that, this method is executed. But if you don't configure that, this method never been executed, which means the existing code never touched this code. So this is totally removed from the code base, something like that stuff. So now for the existing project, it is very safe, and if the customer don't want this feature, and just disable the distributed tracing, then all of the code is not executed. So it is very safe. So all of the code I added to the durable task, it is included inside of this propagate method. So you can easily to search this one. So you can find all the method I changed. So as you can see, this is creating some the get parent trace context, then the get request trace context from the trace parent context. So this is the parent, and this will become the inherit ID and create a new ID for the for the new children, and this becomes the trace context request, and this trace context is included inside of the the task orchestration work item instance, like this. So if you want to passing through this value, all you need to do is just find out this one inside of the the task orchestration dispatcher and passing this guy to your target class. That's it. So it is totally easy stuff. And also you can find the complete task 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 complete. Yep. So you can find out this one executed after the functions, the the executed functions class. So functions class is maybe we can defer this. The simple one might be good. So functions class, this one is executed like orchestrator, hello orchestrator, for example, very simple one. This one is executed. After this one is executed, then what happened is that this method is finally called. As may be noticed, this this is written by the customer, but this includes a schedule task, which means called activity function, and this stuff is included. If you write this code, this guy and send the queue and with telemetry with the queue through the task hub task hub task queue hub queue client, or I'm gonna show you later. So so this is reside in here, the messaging in here. So you can go to the task hub queue, and eventually this one is called task hub queue and get serialized. Now also you can find propagate here, right? So in here, if it is okay, that get serialized trace context is here and create a data like this, adding the data to that, and it is automatically serialized. And in this case, there also this one, what it looks like is like this. So this one, what it's doing is look at this. Point is this one, the correlation trace context dot current. I don't want to the pass through the all the trace context to the all method that related. I don't want to do it. So the solution is create a dot current method. This is the async local method. So if this is on the call graph, if you set the current trace context in here, then you can get it if it is on the trace, the call graph. So that is why you don't need to add the additional parameter to the method, but you can share this trace context to the the some class on the call context. So as I use this technique, so I propagate all the trace context to the all over the class. And go back to the Azure storage orchestration, so you can see the the if the track extended session dependency telemetry method is here and complete, then you can track the dependency telemetry started, and create a request telemetry dependency is created in here, and after the finishing the orchestrator, and finally so track the request telemetry and also the dependency telemetry in somewhere. So something like that stuff is happening. Yep. So you can read through that the code. Just this is just checking the event style like this and decide what to do. So that is so yeah, not very complex. So at the same time, so let's see the activity class. Look next, task activity work item. For the activity class, as I explained, the difference is not very big deal, but the trace context activity is created now. The new trace context is created. This one. Under this method, this will create a new activity inside of this. So the activity work item has this one. So eventually, that is this one include the activity instance. So that is why the if you execute the activity functions like this, for example, that sample is here. So if you find activity named, for example, hello, the hello is here. If the orchestrator execute the activity functions, this guy already have a activity class instance. If you specify the activity class dot current, then you can get it. So yeah, this is a secret of the durable task, the correlation system, and also for the detail of the code, you can read this four method. Then you can fully understand what is happening. And sometimes you need to read some uh, task hub queue and depend dispatchers, but not many code in designing here. All you need to do is task hub queue and all Azure Storage orchestration services. That's it. So enjoy coding.